Good evening, everyone, and good evening, and welcome to this Central Area Planning Committee on Wednesday, the 2nd of June, 2021. My name is Councillor Michael Edwards, and I'm the chairman of this committee. Before we commence the business of the meeting, there are a few housekeeping issues to run through. Members, the setup for the meeting has been designed to mitigate for COVID. Therefore, can I ask all present to work to the protocols agreed at Council on the 29th of April 2021 in the interests of member and officer safety. We are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. Members and officers, during each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. When invited to speak, please remove your mask, put on your visor, turn on your microphone and speak clearly. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers. Keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible and ensure your microphones may not remain off when not speaking. Finally, can I draw your attention to the notices on the agenda papers regarding the different levels within the chamber, and advise that the fire exit is the door behind this top table. Item 2, apologies for absence. Are there any?
We've received no apologies for absence, Chair. Everybody's here.
Thank you. Item 3, minutes of the last meeting, the 21st of April 2021. These are on page 7 to 10. Can I move that these are true and accurate record, or do you want to go page by page? So do you agree by... Can I have a seconder first, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. So agree by assent?
Agree.
Thank you. Item 4, declarations of interest. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other pecuniary interests, or non-pecuniary interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraphs 6 to 8, inclusive of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are reminded that they are also required to disclose any such interests as soon as they become aware, should the need arise throughout the meeting. Are there any interests? Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just so I've got a non-pecuniary interest, in items 7 and 8, Park Drive Fitness and Squash Club. I'm a member of. Don't get down there half as much as I should, but I'm a member of and have been for a while. And number 8 is Mr. Salisbury, who is a Haybridge Parish Councillor and a friend, although he is not on my Christmas card list, and we've never exchanged bodily fluids. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Councillor Mays.
Oh, I'm totally sorry. So excited about receiving the LDP. Yes, a non-pecuniary interest in item 8, as I'm acquainted with the applicant, and a non-pecuniary... What? Oh, sorry. A non-pecuniary interest in item 8, as I'm acquainted with the applicant, and a non-pecuniary interest in item 8, again, as I'm acquainted with the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Leggan.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Non-pecuniary, all of these. Number 5, as I live on the road, and I've spoken with the River Bailiff regarding moorings in the past for a vessel I once owned. Number 6, Shakespeare Drive. I've corresponded with residents about bus routes and have a relative who lives on the street. Number 7, Park Drive. I'm an ex-member of the club and my late mother used to work there. Number 8, and I've spoken on this agenda item as an independent member of the public at Maldon Town Council, and I reserve the right under the Localism Act to hold a different view as a district councillor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Leggan. Councillor Stoltz, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The same as Councillor Lagan, really. It's a non-pecuniary on all of them. I know on item 5, I know the applicant. On item 6, I'm a ward member, and we've had consultation with some of the people in the ward. Item 7, as at the moment I'm still a member, but that runs out this month. And item 8, as I know the applicant.
Thank you. Councillor Nunn.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Items 5, 7 and 8, because I'm acquainted with the applicant's non-pecuniary interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hurd.
Thank you, Chairman. Items 5 and 8, non-pecuniary, as I know both applicants.
Thank you. Councillor Shaughnessy, did you have your hand up? No. Okay. I also would like to declare non-pecuniary interest in item 8, as I'm also acquainted to Mr Salisbury, as is the Heybridge Parish Councillor. Thank you. Item 5, 21/00230. We move to item 5. This is now found on page 11 to 18, and can I ask Ms Keane to please represent her report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Planning permission is sought for the demolition of the existing single-storey lean-to extension and the erection of a single-storey rear extension, a rear-facing dormer, roof lights and alterations to the internal layout. This is the location plan showing the proposed site outlined in red. This is the proposed block plan. This is the existing ground floor plan, the existing first floor plan, the proposed ground floor plan, showing the extension to the rear, the proposed first floor plan, showing the changes to the layout of the rooms, and the proposed second floor plan, showing where the position of the dormer and the roof lights. These are the existing elevations, and these are proposed elevations. These are the photographs of the site showing the dwelling from the front and the rear, and the neighbouring dwellings either side. The application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Members, I now open the debate and invite you to put any questions or make any comments you have on this report, please. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I've looked at this quite extensively. I believe that the officers have got this one right, and I propose that we approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder to that?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Councillor Lunn.
Well, I was just about to second it, actually, but I know the property as well. Unfortunately, it's become quite run down in recent years, and I think the proposal is fine. It's in keeping. It's not going to change the look of the frontage, and like Councillor Morris, I agree with the officer's recommendation. So I think we should, well, personally, I'd like to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Lunn. Any others? None? Well, we have a proposal on the table then. So the proposal is to approve this. So do we have a show of hands, or assent, or recorded? Assent. Oh, that's it then. That's passed. Thank you. Thank you, Ms King. Can I ask you to leave the meeting by the door? Thank you very much. Okay. Members, agenda item 6, 21/00238 for Shakespeare Drive. These can be found on page 19 to 24. Please note that a member's update in relation to this application has been circulated prior to the meeting. And can I ask Ms Ellis, please, to represent your report?
Thank you, Chairman. The application is for a single-storey extension to the rear of the existing dwelling. The development would also include a number of alterations to an existing single-storey rear addition, including raising the roof to bring it in line with the height of the proposed extension and the provisions of a roof light. This is the application site. Here is the single-storey existing. Here is the proposed extension, the existing elevations, the proposed elevations, the existing floor plans, the proposed floor plans, photos taken from the rear garden, additional photos from the rear garden, and the front of the property and the street scene. The recommendation for this application is up for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Members, and I now open the debate and invite you to put any questions or make any comments you have on this report. Councillor Mayes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My only question is, it says it's a member calling, but doesn't really give us any idea as to why. Can you just enlighten me on that, please? Thank you.
Through you, Chairman, that's contained on the members' update.
Thank you.
Councillor Stilts called it in. Councillor Mayes. Councillor Morris.
I can't see any objections. Was there any objections? Maybe I've missed the update.
You want to update on that?
Any objections?
Not objections, but the update. The update was due to the bulk and scale of the development, the reason for calling. In fact, Councillor Stilts, perhaps would you like to...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The reason for calling this in is that I felt that it was detrimental to the health and well-being of the occupant of the annex through the bulk and scale of the design. The window that you saw in the back of the property, that is the kitchen window, will go, and they are going to raise the roof of the kitchen. Can you go to that slide for us, Jade? So,
Here, this one?
no, back again.
This one.
Yes, so I think there's another one that's better. So when you look at that, there is a kitchen window. The kitchen window will disappear. They are going to raise the roof of the kitchen and put in a Velux window, which I'm not sure by looking at the plans whether that Velux window is opening, which then would mean that the occupant had no ventilation in the kitchen. And I do believe that it shows that there will be a narrow alleyway between the bedroom door, which leads out to the amenity space.
Thank you. Councillor Morris, you want to come back on that?
Thank you, Councillor Stilts. That helps me a little bit. I'm minded to approve the officer's recommendation with this one because I feel that it's got more pluses than minuses. So I would propose that we accept the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Mayes.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Stilts mentioned something about a Velux window and there being no ventilation. Is this an opening window or is this a fixed window? Can the officer advise?
Through you, Chairman, I can pick this up. Part of the submission doesn't include that level of information. A kitchen window isn't habitable accommodation, and in planning terms there wouldn't be a standard of living basic required in relation to that. There is building regulations requirements in relation to ventilation, but that isn't a planning matter. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Swain.
Yes, Chairman, can I just clarify how this relates to the neighbour? It's a semi-detached property, isn't it? I'm not quite clear whether it does affect the neighbouring property or not.
Can
It shouldn't affect the neighbouring property. From the top photo, it will come out to their extension, I believe. So it shouldn't have any overshadowing or dominance on the neighbouring property.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm sort of minded to sort of agree with what Councillor Stilt says about the bulk and the scale of the thing. That area of the street is a very well balanced street scene, and the building at the back, the word should causes me a little bit of concern. Is that it shouldn't interfere with the light or overshadow, but doesn't mean that it wouldn't. So I have some concerns based on the size of it, and also with the potential for the light, although as Mr Lees just said, it's not a planning term, but I would like to register that concern.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mays.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Sorry. Can we have another look at the base plan to see where the extension comes to in relation? There was one that was in relation to the neighbour.
This one?
Yeah, thank you. So, if I've understood the plan correctly, the line on the left-hand side is not going beyond. Is that right?
Yeah. It shouldn't go
Yeah.
beyond.
So it's the same.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Through you, Chairman, can I just make a certain comment in relation to the point just made about this comment? It's very rare for planners to put down categorically there will be zero harm, because it's a perspective thing, and one person may consider that there is harm when another one won't. But what we talk about is level of harm that warrants reasonable refusal. That's why we'll say we consider there won't be any harm, but we won't say definitively, because it's to a certain extent a subjective thing. But when assessing an application, we need to look at whether it's to such a degree as to warrant a reason for refusal. I've just noted a few times over committees points of that have been sort of raised, so I just wanted to clarify that point. That's why our reports say that, and why officers answer questions in the way they do, because at the end of the day it's yourselves as the decision maker to make those decisions. But just because we haven't said something categorically doesn't mean we aren't confident there won't be harm, in our professional opinion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr Lee. Well, Councillor Hurd.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I mean, I've looked at the plans there. I can't really see any real problem with it. I think that it's a single-storey rear extension. There's going to be lighting through the roof. I personally don't have a problem with it, and if it's been proposed to be agreed, I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Hurd. Okay, so we'll put this to take the vote on then, on the first, because yours wasn't a proposal, was it? Yours just a comment. So we'll take your proposal first. So
Councillor Hurd was seconding Councillor Morris.
that's right. Yeah, yes. So can we show our hands for approval? Thank you. And against. So that's carried as well. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Members, okay, item 7, 21/00249, Park Drive Fitness and Squash Club. These are found on pages 25 to 34. And can I ask Ms Matthews, please, to present your report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Everyone hear me? Can I take this?
Yep.
Thank you. Right, so this is an application for a all-weather cover for existing paddle courts, a proposed new show court and an office stroke change area at Park Drive Fitness and Squash Club. So this is the application site hatched in red, which currently forms part of the land associated with the fitness club. So this is the application site in closer detail. So you've got the arrow there is pointing to the what used to be the tennis court there, which is now the paddle court. And that's how it is now, with the 3 paddle courts in the corner there. So the proposal is to cover the 3 paddle courts with a canopy, and there's also a proposed show court to the south of that, and the other arrow is pointing to where the proposed office and changing room would be located. So this is the show court, which is basically the same appearance and design and layout and lighting as the existing paddle courts, but this one would be uncovered. And then this is the proposed roof for the existing paddle courts. We've got elevations and floor plan of the proposed offices. Just a small single-storey building. And we've got some photos there of the existing paddle courts, the parking area, and on the bottom left there, the existing fitness and squash club buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, I now open the debate and invite you to put any questions or make any comments you have on the report, please. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Just like to say that as a council, I do believe that we should be supporting all endeavours to increase the community's fitness, and this one certainly doesn't seem to have any drawbacks whatsoever. It seems to be a winner any way you look at it, and I would like to propose that we support the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nunn.
Yes, I agree again with Councillor Morris on this, and it's not that I would exercise myself, but I think in this day and age, outside exercise like this is excellent for the community, and so I would support it. I'd second the proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think that with the history of this premises, you know, when they first put in the open air pool, that had to be covered up so it could be used as a 365 facility. And when you go down there now and watch the people on the padel courts, it can only benefit the usage of the courts and the facilities. So, like my learned members, I'm fully prepared to support this application.
Thank you. Councillor Swain.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just a clarification. I'm not clear about the nature of the roof or the cover, the material, and as I understand it, there's part wall. If it is part open, is it underneath the overall cover?
Through you, Chairman, it's open on all sides, just on post. It was described earlier as a glorified gazebo, but or a very big gazebo, but that I don't know whether that's not technically correct. But to give you an idea of what it might look like, but obviously on a bigger scale. So no, it would just be a roof. It's described as UPVC roof. It'd be off-white colour, I think, and it would just be supported on posts above the existing courts. Yes, it's a permanent structure that will be over the court, yeah, so that, as one of the members said, is that so that they can continue to play even when it's raining.
Okay, Councillor Hurd.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I would certainly approve of this. I think it supports a fit and healthy lifestyle. I think it supports the business, and I think it would support and benefit those residents who use it. So I would certainly support it.
Thank you. Councillor Stilts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I think I was the one that described it as a glorified gazebo when I asked if it could be a red green roof. Is there any way that they could put sides on that in future, or is that a condition that we can put in to say that they couldn't? Yes.
Through you, Chairman, it might be arguable that they could put sides on. There'll be a view would need to be taken whether it materially altered the external appearance of we would call it a building or structure. But for belt and braces, then yes, a condition could be imposed to ensure that if they did want to enclose it, then they would need to come back and ask for a permission first.
If members wish to impose that, we can.
Is that something you would?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to impose that they don't put sides on it, and that we impose that condition. If they want to then enclose it at a later date, they'll have to come back and ask for planning permission again, but I would like to make sure it doesn't happen.
Do members agree on that? Councillor Hurd?
I'm not sure I do agree on that, Chairman, to be honest. I mean, we are asked to judge the application that's in front of us. If they did want to put sides on it, I think it would materially change it, and I think that's something that they would have to come back. But even if they did, I don't particularly have a problem with it. So I'm not really sure. I mean, I'm happy to go with if members want to do that, but I wouldn't necessarily ask it to be a condition.
Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, am I being a little bit thick here? Because what are the sides that they might put on it? As I understand it, we've got a canvas type roof that's going to be going over, and the sides are enclosed by the plexiglass or whatever it is that the paddle tennis already has there, that is already there. So what sides are we talking about, please?
I don't know. Can you clarify that? Sorry, Mr. Lee.
Through the Chair, sort of for a bit of clarity, as Ms Matthews said, it's a bit of an argument about whether or not would need development, whether it would fall under the definition. It would also do with whether it materially alters the structure and appearance, because this sort of development wouldn't benefit from permitted development, so it would require consent. It would be a very belt and braces approach, partly because actually if it was anything that would be even slightly problematic, for want of a better phrase, we would consider it be development and therefore would need permission. So a condition would only limit a very small amount of work, whether or not. So it's a bit hard to answer Councillor Morris's point, because actually if it went to anything that might spring to mind of extensive works to this or doing that, it would likely to fall into the remit of development anyway and therefore require permission. But it would only cover the grey area, and to ensure that we didn't have arguments in the future over things, rather than explicitly protecting something that would be harmful, I would suggest, if for members' clarity. Thank you, Chairman.
Do members wish to add this condition? Councillor Swain?
I'd agree, yes. It's better to put the condition in rather than have one certain position in future as to whether planning permission was required or not, or whether we're dealing with something after the event.
Can we have a seconder for that then, please? So the proposal is to approve, but with a condition as laid out by Mr. Lee. Correct? No?
Through you, Chairman, for clarity, so it would be the conditions that are in the officer's report, plus an additional condition in removing the permitted development rights, or removing the rights for any form of development, that would be delegated to officers for final wording through consultation with yourself.
Okay, thank you. You all agree? Can I have... Oh, sorry, Councillor Nunn.
Well, do we not need to vote on the condition? Do we need to vote on the addition of the condition?
Yeah.
Yeah, through you, Chairman, that's what you'll be voting on, the application with all the conditions we've said plus the additional condition. That's what we'd be voting on, yeah. Obviously, if that was to fail, then you could move to the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Mays.
Yeah, just before we move to that, can I just ask how RAMS plays into this as well? Could I ask Mr. Lee? It's not mentioned on any of the applications, that's all.
RAMS?
RAMS, yeah.
Through you, Chairman, RAMS relates to recreation, avoidance and mitigation and relates to additional dwellings. None of the applications...
It's dwellings only?
Yeah, none of
Okay, thank you, I just wanted to double check, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Therefore, can I have... we want to vote by assent with those conditions? Okay. Or do you want to roll... Sorry. By assent? Yes, taking a vote on the proposal and with the additional condition.
Taking a vote on the... Sorry, Chairman, take a vote with the condition.
Yes.
To approve with the...
To approve, sorry, to approve with the extra condition.
Okay.
So we're all agreed? Okay, thank you. So that's carried. Thank you, Mr. Matthews. Are you ready? Okay, thank you. Members, item 8, 21/00314, the Promenade Park. And can I, sorry, please note that a member's update in relation to this application has been circulated prior to the meeting. And can I ask Ms Dungate please to present your report? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman. Planning permission is sought for the conversion and renovation of an existing public seating shelter into a food serving kiosk. Please note the members' update, which includes some additional representations received for the application. On the location plan submitted, you can see the site outlined in red, which is located within Promenade Park, which is also within Maldon Conservation Area. Promenade Park is a non-designated local heritage asset and lies within the leisure quarter, as identified in the Maldon and Heybridge Central Area Master Plan. Within the master plan, the application site lies within an area which is identified as a destination hub for a combined visitor centre and specialist restaurant. On the plan, I've identified the locations of the existing kiosk and other covered seating areas, which you can see by the arrows. This is the block plan for the application. As you can see from the plan, the shelter is located on the southern side of a pedestrian walkway that runs east to west throughout the park. And these are the existing plans for the application. As you can see, the current shelter has an octagonal layout which is open on 4 sides for seating and is constructed using concrete breeze blocks, clay roof tiles and painted timber fascias. The Heritage and Conservation Specialist has advised that although the structure is broadly traditional in form and style, the breeze block walls are not attractive
and the structure is architecturally undistinguished. The shelter in its current form therefore makes a neutral contribution to the conservation area. These are the proposed plans for the application. No changes are proposed to the overall size of the structure, although the four existing openings would be infilled by new walls. Painted timber cladding is proposed on the elevations of the structure, which would appear similar to the cladding used on the other structures within the park. There would be a serving hatch to the northern elevation of the building, as well as an access door for staff to enter within the eastern elevation. And the proposed hours of operation for the kiosk would be from 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. every day, including bank holidays. This is a photo of towards the site, and you'll note that the arrow should be further to the right there, so apologies for that. But the application site is located behind or beyond the marine lake. And I've also noted here the two covered seating areas along the main promenade. This is another view back to the application site over here with a covered seating area in the foreground. These are the 4 of the 5 existing kiosks in the area. And this is the 5th existing kiosk, which is on the same walkway as the application site. This is the front of the existing structure. This is the rear of the existing structure. And this is the food truck that's currently located above the amphitheatre in front of the site. And this is a photograph of another covered seating shelter in the area. So, in line with the assessment carried out within the committee report, the proposal is considered to be acceptable, subject to the conditions as set out in section 8. The Council's Heritage and Conservation Specialist has raised no objections to the proposal, and it is therefore recommended that planning permission is granted for the proposed development. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We have one public participant for this planning application, and in line with the public participation scheme, I now invite the applicant, Mr. Salisbury, to read out his submission. May I remind you that you are allocated 2 minutes only for public speaking in accordance with the scheme. I've got a timer in there.
Unfortunately, we won't have it on the screen because I've got it on my laptop.
Oh.
So,
It's not up here.
yeah.
Okay. Mr.
I can ensure that.
Okay, it's going to be brief anyway.
Mr. Salisbury, would you like to
mic on.
turn your microphone on, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Right, okay, it's very brief.
Oh,
I'm just going to go bullet points. So basically what the offer is to repurpose an existing building that was due for demolition. The removal, by doing this, it will remove the antisocial behaviour which is prevalent in the area, the drug taking, the alcohol abuse. It's being used for a toilet as well on numerous occasions, a lot. By us going there, we'll be raising the bar of the park offer with consistent open and closing times. We won't be cherry picking our hours, we'll be doing proper day. The park encourages healthy living and exercise in that lifestyle. And what we'll be serving is healthy foods, salads, etc. There won't be no burgers and fries. And what we'll be doing is also catering for vegetarians, vegans and people with food intolerances via our click and collect service. There is no cost to Maldon District Council for this project, and we made an offer to build another shelter as well in any location the council want, so we're more than happy to take an undertaking on that, whether it be this year, next year or whenever. Probably the most important thing is that we'll be creating 4 full-time jobs for local people. We also support the local supply chain via Mrs Salisbury's, which also supports the local economy. And the final thing I would say is with regard to the park run, that we've negotiated with the council. So with regards to the park run on the Saturdays, we will be closing our seating area on the amphitheatre until it is finished. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Salisbury. Members, I now open the debate and invite you to put any questions or make any comments you have on the report. So, starting with Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have fond memories of this little hut. I spent far too many hours down there as a school child, probably being in school when I shouldn't have been, and I kissed the occasional girl in there as well, so it has got quite some nostalgic memories for me. Problem is, it's just not what it was. It is in a state of disrepair. It does smell of wee. It does have sick on it from time to time. It has got burn marks up the walls. It's not an attractive place to be anymore. And as much as I look at this one a little bit like I look at the Mill Beach Public House, brilliant old building, loved it, but well past its day, and it needs to be replaced with something that can better serve the community and the residents. I've eaten at Mr. Salisbury's, and he does good food, he does quality food, and it's whilst I'm not moaning about burgers and chips, it's a cut above what the other places seem to offer, and I found that from personal experience. My vision for the promenade would be that we attract more older and discerning guests. The promenade is getting busier. I use it regularly on a weekly basis almost, and it is getting busier, so we will need better food places, and this one seems to tick all the boxes. This is a fantastic repurposing, and just a quick point I'd like to make, that if any other seating areas are made, I'd like them to be ecological, I'd like them to be environmentally friendly. I'd like us to maybe plant some trees to make a sheltered bench part area, because I don't believe the promenade needs any more buildings. Just repurposing the new ones will do absolutely fine. So, Chair, I'd like to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation and give this one approval. Thank you.
Councillor. Councillor Mays. Sorry, Councillor Nunn.
He's still thinking about nicking girls.
Well, sticking to planning issues, I've got three things that I'd like to raise, please, Chair. First of all, the extra representations that we've received in the members' update, they're anonymous, but I assume that they're from members of the general public. Sorry?
I believe so. I can double check for you, but they're not from any society or anything else.
The second thing is that I think it's rather ironic that the Conservation Officer has been concerned about the breeze blocks, because presumably it was Maldon District Council that inserted the breeze blocks in the first place. Just an observation. And the third point is that Maldon Town Council seems to have suggested what appeared to me, reading this report, to be eminently sensible conditions. But those conditions don't seem to appear in the officer's recommended conditions. Is that proposed conditions? Is that right, please?
Yeah, I'm just double checking the report for you, but I know that I have dealt with the recommended conditions from the parish within the body of the report. So it's just relating to the removal of the food truck and providing an alternative replacement shelter. Are those the 2 points that the parish? Yeah. So through you, Chairman. At paragraph 5.5.3, we have dealt with the recommendations of the parish council. So the stationing of the food truck to the front of the application site doesn't actually benefit from planning permission. It's obviously we would need an application to assess whether planning permission is actually required for the food truck, because I'm not sure whether it's a temporary structure in terms of we don't know how many days of the year it is there, or whether it leaves the site at night. So because it doesn't actually benefit from the grant of planning permission at the moment, we can't condition that it's removed. That would just be subject to either an enforcement case or discussion outside of this application. We also consider, because the loss of the seating shelter is considered acceptable when we considered it against the policies, we wouldn't condition that there's another public seating shelter constructed in its place, because if we felt that the loss of the seating shelter was so adverse, we wouldn't be approving the application. So that wasn't a reasonable condition to add in this case, but it is in 5.5.3. We have discussed that.
Grateful. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the explanation.
Thank you.
Mr. Stilts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can the officer tell me exactly how many eating establishments we've got in the park? You only mentioned 4, and there's at least 2 more.
Yes, so obviously I'm aware of, through you, Chairman, I'm aware of the application that was approved at committee the other month for the food kiosk at the golf course. Obviously there's 5 within that central Promenade Park area, and there are some food outlets further west of the site, but those are the ones that I'm aware of.
Thank you. And can you tell me where the nearest and how far it is seating area, covered seating area, where people can take shelter from the rain is?
From the application site?
Yes.
145 metres to the west and 110 metres to the north.
Thank you. Councillor Leggan. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hood.
Thank you, Councillor Leggan. First of all, I have to say that I support this application wholeheartedly, and the reason I support it is because I think that this building, as it is, has no architectural merit at all. I think that I have the people that I've seen using it are those who are there for antisocial reasons, so I certainly concur with what Mr. Salisbury is saying. I know that some people have concerns about oversubscription of shops and establishments at the prom, but A, it's not a planning reason, and secondly, what I do see is many, many queues at these places, so I think that actually it is worth another establishment, and if we have somebody who's willing to make good of that, then I do applaud that. I would also like to see the additional seating area nearby, and the reason I would like it nearby is because if people are selling food there, people will want somewhere to sit and eat it close by. So I think that I'm not a supporter, I'll be honest, I'm not a supporter of the truck there, but I am a supporter of this application and the reasons for it, and therefore I would propose that we accept this recommendation to approve.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Leggan. Councillor Mead.
I was going to go 3 times now. All I was going to do was actually second the motion.
Councillor second and Councillor Morris's
I was going to second the
proposal.
motion. I think it is long overdue, a facelift, and for many of the reasons that have both been pointed out by other councillors. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Leggan, because Councillor Leggan actually
Thank you,
is
Chair.
calling.
Based on the information that's provided in the officer's report, I've got some concerns on this. And as Councillor Nunn has rightfully said, it's the council that hasn't looked after the asset correctly. When I was growing up, it was a wooden structure, well maintained and well used. It's on an area where people with disabilities can easily access. They still can, yeah. If it's removed, they can't. They can. I didn't interrupt you, Councillor. Can you please let me speak, and then you can come after me. Yeah. Well, yeah, because you're right on everything.
No, I'm right.
Sorry,
through the chair.
Just stop, please.
Thank you. So we talk about the access to the shelter for people with disabilities or non-disabilities. You're talking about a shelter that is small and insignificant to a lot of people, but is used by a significantly large amount of people. And I think because the application notice was placed 31 metres away from the site on a small stake, it was difficult for people to look and to comment. There's a couple of things actually in the report that I think need to be brought out as part of the debate purely on planning. Section 3.1.1 talks about the prom being identified as a local heritage park and a non-designated heritage asset. So it's an important area, and the shelter complements the area. It just needs tidying up because we're a riverside town. You ever sit in the shelter like I did today, yesterday, the day before, and many, many times, it has a uniqueness in the fact that it is not just rectangular. It has four sides, which means when you've got a northeasterly or an easterly blowing, you can get some shelter and you can be at ease with that. It's used by a lot of people, not just for antisocial behaviour. That's an endemic problem in Maldon, not just within this shelter. 3.1.2 talks about the four existing kiosks, 130 metres and a fifth only 65 metres away, and Mr Salisbury's kind enough to tell us about the offerings he's going to do. Doesn't mention the lakeside cafe, the barge tea rooms, Blackwater seafood. It also has the pop-up vans. There's a hot dog van down there on the Bath wall this morning. How many do we need? How many do we really need? And whereabouts in the history of the prom does it say that we can open up for all and sundry? I think the pop-ups are fantastic. You know, they're great, but we don't need any more fixed assets. I agree that it won't flood, but in policy D3 section 3.28, it talks about a conservation area to be an area of architectural interest with a character desirable to preserve and protect. When I contacted officers and asked whether it was due for demolishing, it was denied that the shelter was due to be demolished. It needed renovating, not demolishing. Section 5.1.2 talks about the central area master plan. This is important, members, from a planning perspective, because we talk about Project 15, it talks about a visitor centre and a specialised restaurant. There's no visitor centre and there's no specialised restaurant. So we wait until that goes through as part of the master plan. As good as a kiosk is, it's not a specialised restaurant. You know, 5.1.3 reiterates what 5.1.2 says and acknowledges the impact on the established kiosks. So it acknowledges the fact that there's going to be business taken away from long-established businesses. So we have to be careful with that. You know, we talk about no harm in section 5.3.3, talks about no harm in a residential amenity, but it needs conditioning. I can't register myself with that. And the LDP, page 55, section 3.8, it talks, and this is important, about a loss of a building and other element that makes a positive contribution as set out in the relevant conservation area, and the appraisal requires clear and convincing justification. If it was tidied up, it wouldn't need clear and convincing justification. There's a perfectly able, run-down kiosk area in the kids' play park that will benefit from renovation that has very little architectural merit. So it's the only one of its kind on there. People like nostalgia. Carter Steam Fair's a success. You know, it is the only one of the kind. It was left in the park for the people of Maldon to use. And to say people don't use it, well Park Run uses it excessively, and not just Park Run. A lot of other people use that. So I'm not in favour, based on the following grounds. I'd reject this application against policy E3, a loss of a unique community asset, which is described in our LDP. Section policy E53, a detrimental impact and appearance of the area. We'd lose the shelter. And section policy S5, section 7, to preserve the historic character of the built environment. It may seem like a little rundown shelter to some people, but it's part of our history and deserves preserving. And we could use other areas to provide good facilities that Mr Salisbury could bring. And also, in closing, members, I'm very disturbed about the way that this has actually been handled with officers, and I believe it should go to overview and scrutiny, because it talks about in our master plan and our LDP about marketing for community assets. This hasn't been marketed. Thank you, members.
Well, we have a proposal on the table, a proposal from Councillor Morris, which has been seconded by... sorry, Councillor Swain.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. A number of points. First, I would like to find out how and when the decision was made about demolishing. Decision about demolishing it. The second is, this is not an ordinary planning application, because overriding it must be the policies that the District Council has towards the use of Promenade Park. I don't like the way we've gone in a piecemeal fashion in allowing a kiosk here, another outlet there, and given that we've now got the one permitted for the mini golf area, I think we have got enough. The other thing, the next thing is, this would involve opening up a new area with catering. At the present time, it's clear, it's an open area for people to enjoy, and it includes next to it the pétanque area. That is, more could be made of it as a place to sit. If you position yourself there, you'll see this is gives you the finest views of the estuary, and that's why we do need decent accommodation for people to sit there. Another aspect of opening this up as a new area with a kiosk is, I'm afraid, as Councillor Hurd has alluded to it, it would then lead to seating outside and further expansion of that in that area. So there is also the possibility that the shelter and in the play area could be developed as a place for eating and also sitting, and with a good view down the estuary. I think we need to stop and have an overall plan of what we want from catering facilities in Promenade Park. And we need that really to be able, because as I think Councillor Lagan has referred indirectly, we've got a lot of the same sort of kiosks and eateries, and what we need is should we say, a proper cafe, permanent one where people can sit, and that would be more likely to invite a different segment of the population, including the older ones, I think perhaps that has been mentioned. So I would be against this proposal until we've got a clear idea. Firstly, because we don't want to lose that area as an open area for people to enjoy. We could make a lot more of the existing structure for sitting and open up that area by simply removing that hedge, for instance, and it then would be, shall we say, open on at least 3 sides to public view and less likely to generate antisocial behaviour. So I think I don't favour this proposal at all.
Thank you, Councillor. Sorry, Mr. Lee.
Chairman, if it's okay, I'll just come back on a couple of points raised by Councillor Swain and Councillor Lagan. I think it's very important, members, that we remember this is a planning application, and this is a committee that only has powers in relation to planning, termination plan applications. A lot of the points that have been raised may well have merit, but not necessarily planning merit. You know, issues such as how we approach the delivery of services and facilities within the Prom Park, as though we are owners, it's not really a debate for us here as the planning committee. That's a debate for a different committee and maybe discussion outside a committee, but we have a planning application in front of us to determine on its planning merits. I'll just try and go through a few points. There's been a number of points around potentially of disappearance, how it's could be tidied up, and how, you know, potential demolition and things, but that hasn't been the formational basis of the officer's recommendation. You know, that's not been a particular point for consideration in the assessment of this application. And I would advise members that how much value you give or don't give to those points to a certain extent is a moot point in the determination of this application, because it's not really material consideration that there's been criticism of the appearance and it's going to be demolished, and this retains it. Similar in relation to the inappropriate behaviour, although there may be benefits to this wider use of the park, and also potentially these could be overplayed or these could be solved in other ways. You know, this I wouldn't really advise members to give too much weight to in the determination of application. Decorum of individuals isn't really a planning matter. We have to consider it in the big picture. We have to ensure we can do things that stop it negative impacts, because we can't potentially control them in the future. Sorry, I've just lost where I was totally. In relation to the Central Area Master Plan, the officer's report isn't trying to bring forward the argument that this is the specialist restaurant or visitor centre. This is an application being assessed in its own merits. It is not being assessed as part of the delivery of any specialist restaurant. In relation to business impacts, that isn't a material consideration for determination of application. Case law is clear on that. The point of a condition is to ensure there won't be any impacts on neighbours. It's to ensure in the long term that they are mitigated. You know, later at night, in evening, when there's background ambient noise levels are low, they can carry very long distances. So the idea of having that condition is to make sure that this kiosk is only open in hours when there will be acceptable levels of background noise to mitigate any harm from the site. And that's, I'll keep going on for some reason, and that's something that is a standard approach for conditions. My understanding is, and I think Ms Dungate highlighted that the conservation area officer said that this structure was had a neutral impact or something, and I don't think officers have disagree with that, and I don't think the assessment doesn't. Obviously, individuals as members can have a different opinion on that, but we have to be conscious of that would be the advice from the conservation area. Also, in relation to the community asset, as the officer's report explains, we don't consider that this structure falls within that definition, and therefore it doesn't need to be marketed or anything like that, because that's not what we're considering our policy relates to, and therefore it isn't a consideration. I think that covers most of the points. Just the other thing would be obviously that if the area was to be used for seating outside of it, that would require planning permission anyway, so that would be a subsequent application rather than just being automatically allowed by the grant of this application. So I took quite a few points. I think I've covered most. I don't know if Ms Dungate thinks I've missed anything. She wants to pick it up. Otherwise, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Well, right. So who's first? Councillor Murray.
I'll go last,
Councillor Lagan.
Councillor
Okay.
Very briefly, the grounds for refusal could be either that we want to retain it in its existing use, or we can say that the proposed proposal is not an appropriate use of this structure. There's definite reasons for refusal.
Councillor Hurd.
Well, thank you first of all for allowing me to come back for a second bite of the cherry, Chair, and I do appreciate that. I have to say, this, in its current state, it is an unsavoury place to sit. The reason is because of the type of people that it attracts. Frankly, there are only two views that you can get from it. One of them would be looking at a hedge. But I think if there is a concern about the loss of amenity, then why can't we ask as a condition that a similar structure, which is of the same type, be constructed? But I would ask members to look at page 44, the conservation officer, and that's why we employ a conservation officer. The proposed conversion of the public seating shelter into a food serving kiosk would not result in any harm to the significance of the park or the conservation area as heritage assets. That's his professional opinion, and I think we should go with that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lagan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I appreciate you giving me the time to come back, and I won't be as long as I was on the initial thing. No offence taken, Councillor Hurd, because I sat down there with myself and my 87-year-old dad to shelter from the wind. So those type of unsavoury people, obviously you're referring to my good self and other people. And thank you, Mr. Lee, for clarifying some of these areas. As Mr. Lee, the points I make are comments on the officer's report, which as members and ultimate decision makers, with your advice, that's what we're here to do. And basically, as Councillor Swain has quite rightfully said, there are grounds to reject this current application on what Councillor Swain has said. And the points I've raised are from our own local development plan, after careful consideration with the House of Commons Library briefing paper about following your advice as professionals, and as a professional health and safety officer, I consider myself to have most of the knowledge but not everything. So policy E3, a loss of a unique community asset. If we're talking about building, we have something that we need to retain, and then we want to turn around and build something in the like for like of it. To me, it doesn't make any sense, and it goes against the policy. Policies are there to enact and also to support the preservation of some of our community assets, and E3 is clear in that. E5, detrimental impact on the character and preserves of the area, and S5, section 7, preserve the historic character and built environment. Stop and have a look at that thing. Previous councils have allowed it to go to rack and ruin. It would cost very little to make it very, very savoury. It would probably help Mr Salisbury's business because more people want to go and sit in it. And also, you know, with all due respect, Councillor Hurd, yes, one view you do look at a hedge. The other view, as Councillor Swain says, you get the best view of the estuary that there is in the town. And the other one to the side of it looks across the lovely green grass, and the other one looks across the tennis courts. So it's a unique piece of Maldon's history and heritage which the policies should protect. There are other buildings that should be considered for a centre with a restaurant facility with that, but this is not the one. I urge members not to support it.
Councillor Mrs Bill.
Yeah, I'd like to think that 7.1 Maldon Town Council's opinions are taken into consideration. I mean, it's basically in the town, and I think they've thought this through, and I think it's a good suggestion. So I'd like to see this included in any conditions.
Right, sorry, Mr Lee.
Dear Chairman, just in relation to Councillor Bill's point, Ms Dungate did cover it when it was asked by Councillor Nunn, but just for clarity, Maldon Town Council have requested that the food truck is removed. Firstly, this application isn't a personal permission. It is planning permission for the use of a structure to provide food. We can make assumptions, but planning isn't based on assumptions about who will be facilitating it, who will be within the kiosk, but the structure is, or the planning permission sits on the land. So firstly, it's not personal permission, so it won't be appropriate. Secondly, there are question marks even over it, even if it's development by using the vehicle there, because it comes and goes, so it fails a number of the tests under section 55 of what is development, so it wouldn't actually fall under the planning control, and even if it does, then that'd be a breach of planning control, which you shouldn't use a condition on a planning permission to resolve a breach of planning control. It should be dealt with under the planning enforcement powers. So for those reasons, we wouldn't recommend there's a condition in relation to that. And in relation to the use of a structure or requirements of a new structure, as the officer's report explains, firstly, it's not considered to be proportionate. It would require, let's row that back slightly. If we were to use a condition, it would have to be a Grampian condition, which would require that the structure was in place before the use of this kiosk. There is no confidence in the LPA that the landowner wants to put in a new structure, that the landowner will facilitate a new structure, and that would come forward. Therefore, it would be an unreasonable condition to impose. If you were to look to it through a unilateral undertaking on behalf of the applicant, where he freely provides it, firstly, you may still have a problem that the landowner doesn't want it, which then make that legal agreement ultra vires. But on top of that, it wouldn't be proportionate to require a whole new structure in replacement for one structure on the fact that we are providing an opportunity, or there is an opportunity to create a new retail element, for want of a better phrase. It's not proportionate. It wouldn't meet the 3 tests for a section 106. So for those reasons, my professional advice is that the requirements of the town council don't meet the test for being imposed. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr Lee. Councillor Morris, you want to come back?
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I'd just like to respond to a couple of comments that I've heard. I visit that place quite often, and it has a step up to get into it, which makes it inaccessible to certain wheelchair users. So it is not an accessible area to people with disabilities. Sorry, Councillor Langan, you're wrong. Okay, then we'll go down there, we'll have a look and see if there's a step up that would stop people rolling in there, yeah? I'll meet up with you if you want tomorrow, fella. Great. See you tomorrow. What time?
Councillor Morris.
Yeah.
We have
Great.
a proposal on the table.
Sorry, Chairman. I'd just like to say this will be an asset to Promenade Park. We need decent food outlets. We need more than burger and chips. We need something to be done about that hut, because at the end of the day, no matter how many times you do it up, there's always going to be scroats that go in there and wee in it. It will fall into disrepair sooner or later, and it will be a constant source of a money drain on Maldon District Council. I think that getting a high quality food outlet put in there is the sensible option. It will help the community, it will help the Promenade Park, and there are a number of lovely benches and other places that people can sit and eat, and I would urge members to approve this. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, members, I think we've debated this quite a bit now, so...
Sorry, Chairman, if I can just quickly point, in relation to the first point of Councillor Morris' statement, as I said earlier, this isn't a personal permission. There is no restriction on what can or can't be sold suggested through the conditions. So for that point, I don't think that should take any weight in determination of his application. It's not questioning what the applicant said in his submission, but planning talks about the lifetime of the development, and even if the applicant starts off, with the most healthiest food, if he decides to vacate and somebody else goes in, it could be all the foods that Mr. Morris Councillor Morris has just listed off as not appropriate, could be in there. So for that reason, I would advise members don't take that as a material consideration in determination of his application.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Leith. So, Mrs. Bill.
Thank you, Chairman. This is going back to the same issues. I think the applicant actually owns the van that apparently is not there. Is that under the 28-day rule? As in, are they allowed 28 days in the year? And if it is illegal, that would obviously have to be shut down if the applicant also owns that and he's getting this built. And to me, it's a no-brainer that if the gentleman's prepared to build another unit, that would save the council money.
Mr. Lee?
Is any of that relevant?
Chairman, as said earlier, just because the applicant may have an ongoing breach of planning control doesn't mean that we can restrict that through a condition. Secondly, as I said, the coming and going of a vehicle doesn't necessarily fall under the definition of development as set out in Section 55 of the Town and Country Planning Act. The vehicle could facilitate a change of use if it was there, if there was permits and tests, etc. But we haven't got a definitive opinion in part of this report, so I wouldn't want to give a definitive statement. But I have concerns if the anecdotal information I have about the frequency of the movement of the vehicle, that it would be development and therefore it wouldn't be a breach of planning control. And as I explained earlier, and as members know from many times I've said at committee, just because an applicant's willing to meet a condition, meet a requirement of Section 106, doesn't mean that it falls within the allowance of the planning system, and us as decision makers need to make correct decisions based on the law and guidance in relation to things like that. So, as I said, I wouldn't encourage either of those required as through this permission. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Right, we have a... Councillor Bill.
Sorry, I don't speak that often, so I've got to get in while I can. I'm not using that as a reason to refuse this planning application. If the applicant's got that because he hasn't got anywhere else to do it, you can kill two birds with one stone. It will sort out the enforcement and it will actually give the applicant a proper base. To me, it's a win-win situation.
Thank you, Chair. What I'll say is that, as I said, in theory, just if planning permission is given today, it's given permission for the structure, so we can't make those assumptions. We can assume, but in the planning determination, you can only base it on facts, not assumptions, and it needs to be evidence. And for that reason, I strongly advise that we don't impose that condition because it fails the tests in planning.
Yes, I think we've debated this. Councillor Morris has proposed that we accept the officer's recommendation. Councillor Hurd has seconded it. So, sorry?
Councillor May seconded.
Or is it Councillor Mays? Beg your pardon. So first, shall we do that first and see if it have a show of hands?
Can we record the vote, please, Chair?
Recorded vote, yes. Can we do a roll call? And,
Yes, of course.
for the approval,
For the officer's recommendation.
the officer's recommendation,
of
sorry.
approval. Members, I will call your names in alphabetical order, starting with Councillor Beale. For. Councillor Edwards.
For.
Councillor Hurd. For. Councillor Hubner.
For.
Councillor Lagan.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Mays. For. Councillor Morris.
4.
Councillor Nunn.
Purely on planning grounds for.
Councillor Shaughnessy.
Against.
Councillor Stilts.
Against.
And Councillor Swain.
Against.
Thank you. Members, that's 7 for the officer's recommendation of approval and 3 against, no abstentions.
Thank you. So that's carried. Thank you very much.
4 against. I think 7 for.
4 against, sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So that's carried. Thank you. Item 9, any other items of business? There are none. And item 10, thank you for your contribution this evening. I now draw the meeting to a close at 8:46 p.m. As the meeting is now closed, members are advised not to enter into any further discussion, and please leave the meeting via the exit door behind the top table, bearing in mind social distancing. Thank you very much. Meeting closed.
Are we